started. We are going to talk about advanced inventory inside of QuickBooks Enterprise. So I'm going to show you the features of advanced inventory, talk to you about what those are intended for. We're going to walk through some workflows examples, and then I always show you the reporting available when you have these features turned on. So before we jump to my sample file, let's talk about what exactly is advanced inventory inside of QuickBooks Enterprise. So I always get clients that get confused between advanced and enhanced, and I'm going to talk through those when I get over to the file so you can see. But the advanced inventory is an optional add-on. This feature provides powerful tools when it comes to managing complex inventory operations when you need them that are more than the basic capabilities that are already found inside of QuickBooks. And we're going to go through those different features that I mean when I talk about the complex inventory operations. It's designed for businesses that handle multiple warehouses, or maybe you want to track lots or serials. And of course, you need a more detailed reporting aspect. Okay, so let me minimize this and let's go to our sample file and let's go over the features and talk about what they're intended for. So QuickBooks has standard inside their system, the inventory features. So even if you don't have the advanced inventory turned on, you still have access to set up your inventory. Go ahead and have an inventory workflow that includes managing our inventory. What we're going to talk about today is if we need more complex inventory. So first, let's start off and talk about those features. So I'm going to go over to your company preferences. This is where we would activate those preferences when it comes to inventory. So under our inventory and item management, of course, to be able to have inventory inside of your QuickBooks file function, you need to always activate, whether you're going to use advanced inventory or just the standard inventory workflows, you have to activate it. So you want to check this little box that says inventory and purchase orders are active. Below here is a new feature I really love. This is where we're able to link and track when we create a purchase order from a sales order. So in the past, you could create inside your sales order a purchase order, but you couldn't see the link between them. And now they've introduced to where you can see the link, and we'll look at that. And then, of course, this is around our standard inventory management and in regards to negative inventory. So we always want to be warned minimum if we do not have enough inventory to sell. And of course, you can see you have quantity on hand and quantity available. And just a reminder for you guys, what that means is quantity on hand is what we would expect to find in the inventory warehouse, where quantity available takes into account any sales orders that we've created. So that means we've committed those items to a customer. And so that takes an effect. So if I have 5 widgets in my warehouse, but I have created a sales order for 3, then my availability on those items is going to show 2. Okay. And then if we run into a situation where your team is continuing to create negative inventory in our system, that harms our database, we can turn on to say do not allow negative inventory quantities. What that means is we can create a sales order, we can create an estimate, but we cannot convert those to invoice if it would cause negative inventory. Okay, so now for our advanced inventory settings, this is what I was talking to you guys about. There's a difference between advanced inventory and enhanced inventory. So this is a separate feature, workflow function that we're not going to discuss today because I could spend 30 minutes talking about that. But what we're going to focus on is the advanced inventory settings. So you can see you've got lots of tabs that you can select. So first is going to be discussing multiple warehouse sites or locations. So this allows you to track inventory across multiple warehouses, multiple trucks, multiple sites. You can also track bins. So inside your warehouses, if you want to have your inventory located on certain shelves and you want to be able to go directly to that shelf, you can turn on bin tracking within your inventory sites. Okay, so let's just stop for a minute and talk about why we might want to have multiple inventory. So some reasons would be, of course, if we actually have multiple warehouses, and so we are tracking inventory at different locations, and we want to be able to see what the quantity on hand is at each location or warehouse. Another example would be by trucks. So if we have, for example, an air conditioning company where their team members, their service team, will go to the main warehouse and they will pull inventory for their trucks, you want to be able to track the inventory on hand per truck. Okay. And then, of course, as I said, sites. So sometimes inside of a warehouse, you might separate your warehouse by sites. You can set that up so that you can see, again, inventory by site. Okay. So serial and lot number tracking. Now inside of QuickBooks, this is either or. So you can either track serial numbers or you can track lot numbers. It's telling me, hey, before you change, you do have transactions with serial numbers. You cannot do both. So if you have a situation where you need to track both serial numbers and lot numbers, we can work with you to design a workflow that would allow that using some different fields inside of QuickBooks. But let's just kind of go through and see all the different things that we can activate. So if we're doing serial numbers, you can choose to where does the serial number begin. So sometimes it is, I purchase equipment and it is linked to a serial number. And so I want it from the time that I purchased that inventory. And then other times I see where it's when we create a finished good and we are internally creating our own serial tracking so that we can, if a customer says, hey, my piece of equipment is damaged, we want to be able to find the transaction with that serial number so that we can see when it was purchased by the customer, see if they're still under warranty. So we can say, don't start it until the sales transactions. Inventory adjustments and transfers. This is very important if we're using multiple warehouses. So if I purchase a piece of equipment and originally I receive it to my main warehouse, but I move it to my service team's truck, I want to be able to transfer that inventory. Or let's say it got damaged and so I need to write that piece of equipment off. So we want to be able to create inventory adjustments or move it between our inventory sites. And of course, if you're using build assemblies, you want to be able to move that serialized inventory to your build assemblies. And then you have some alerts. So you can say just alert me if it's empty. You can say don't alert me. So sometimes not all inventory is serialized, and so you don't necessarily need an alert. Or you can make it mandatory, meaning every piece of equipment is serialized. Now, I will show you inside of an item where you can choose certain items to say they are not serialized. Okay, and then coming on down here, same exact thing. You can alert me if it doesn't exist or if it's duplicated if you're creating some customized serial numbers. If we turn on lot numbers, you have this great feature for expiration dates. So expiration dates allow you to track when you purchase a lot. If there's, think of this in the food industry, you want to track an expiration date, so you can select all of that information also. We've got FIFO. So QuickBooks uses a default of average cost when it comes to creating the asset value. And what that means is that when you set up your item card, you choose a certain cost. But as you purchase this item, that cost can change. And QuickBooks is going to take the number of quantity And then it's going to take all of the costs that it's been paid. It's going to create an average cost. And I'll show you an example where sometimes the item cost, when I set it up, an average cost is different, and it uses for this asset value tracking the average cost. But of course, if you like first in, first out, you can switch it to that. Barcode scanning. So barcodes are a way that we can add onto our product to be able to use a handheld scanner, to be able to track it, to create transactions, to do inventory counts. You can have your own in Excel barcodes that you want to import and attach them to your items, or you can use the barcode wizard. So you're allowing QuickBooks to create barcodes for you. Okay. Coming on over here to site operations. Now we always call this pick, pack, and ship. What this allows you to do is create a sales order for your inventory items, and you can send that order to a warehouse personnel, and they get it on their handheld device, and they know what's needed. So we need to pick it, we need to pack it, we need to ship it, and as they complete these steps and they change the status, it will actually update your QuickBooks file. You also have where you can do PO management worksheet, so I'll show you that. And then last but not least is our landed cost. So if you get cost outside of your item cost, so for example, if I pay separate freight, tariff, insurance, and I want to attach those costs to my item, this feature called landed cost does that for you. Okay, so I want to show you on the item setup some of these different things so you can see how they come into play, and then we will go through some workflows. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select one of my inventory items. We'll do this pulley bracket. Okay. So looking at our inventory part, again, this piece here is standard when it comes to creating your name, choosing a category, entering a manufacturer's part number. But here's where that barcode would land if we had that feature turned on. Here's your cost. Right here is that landed cost. So if we wanted to turn it on and add an additional cost to this, you would see it here. When you run your inventory evaluation and you see the cost for that, it would include the cost and the landed cost. Okay, down here you can see my average cost. And so you can see here, when I set this up, my cost was $93, but my average cost, because when I purchased it, it was different. It's taken all of that and it's saying my average cost is $95, and that is what is going to be calculated on my inventory valuation summary report. Here is our inventory site info, so you can see that it will give you per all of your inventory sites that you have created, what is the quantity on hand per each of those sites. You can also, I'll show you this when we create a transaction, that you can see that at transaction level. And then last but not least was where I was showing you that here's the serial number and expiration date. So you can, per item, change this information if you didn't want this specific item to have anything linked to a serial or lot number. Okay, so that's kind of item setup, kind of talking about the features itself. So now let's go and create a transaction. I'm going to do it on the sales level so that you can see it. And then if we have time, we'll do purchasing also. Okay, so back to my home screen. You can create a sales order or estimate. For QuickBooks, all the inventory reporting and tracking starts at sales order. So it's very important, if you start at an estimate, you need to convert it to a sales order if the customer moves forward with the order, to be able to have good inventory management reports. Now I'm going to start from a sales order. Of course, we're going to choose our customer. I'll choose myself. If you've got classes set up, you can choose your classes. Of course, all of this we know is part of our setup at customer level, but we do have some custom fields that we've set up. We're going to choose our item. Okay, and you can see here that we've got sites, we've got locations, we've got bin, we've got all of this set up, but sales order is a non-posting financial transaction. And what that means is there is no financial impact when I save this order. So nothing is actually coming out of a warehouse site. Nothing is actually pulling. If you know, you can enter it, but you don't have to at this point, because sometimes when we're on with the customer, we're creating their sales order, we don't know any of the internal piece of the movement of the inventory. Okay. So at sales order level, we can see that same information about the item where it tells us the inventory site where we have the quantity on hand, and it's showing this here is giving you your availability versus your on hand, and it's taking into account what has been reserved for any sales orders and assemblies. Okay, if we had purchased some and we had some in progress, it would show that we had some on a purchase order also. Okay, so again, when I save this, I'm just going to put 2. It's not going to ask me for anything or say, you know, pick your site, because there is no movement of the inventory. Now, where the movement comes in is when I create the invoice. So I'm going to convert it inside of the sales order, and I'm going to say create an invoice. I'm going to create it for all of them. And at this point, you can see there's that linkage I was telling you guys about. So we can see the sales order that is linked to this invoice. You can see that I've got a site to required. I've got a serial number. If I try to save this without filling that in, because I have activated those features, it is saying, hey, I have some more information that is required before you can save this transaction. Okay, so we're going to choose a site. And again, if I can't remember, it's going to tell me if I choose the wrong warehouse, and it's going to say, hey, you don't have quantity at that warehouse. This is where you have your quantity at. Okay, so I need to make sure I choose my main, because that is where my quantity is at. Okay. You can see that on this item, I've went ahead and I purchased a few so that we could see this, but what is showing me is what serial numbers I have available. So what this means is I have purchased 2 of these, and I have 2 available that I can choose from. I can select them one at a time, or if I choose add multiple serial numbers, it then brings them up and I can go ahead and check them or select all. Okay. If I was starting at the sales level and I didn't have serial numbers to choose from because I didn't start at purchase, I would need to manually create a serial number for these 2 products, because that's where I'm saying it starts from. Okay, so I'm going to save this. And this is now my financial impact. So what happened is for this item, my inventory moved out from my main warehouse. The cost of that moved to my cost of goods sold on my profit and loss, and I no longer have these 2 available to sell. Okay, I am going to delete this because I want to show you reports on this. Okay, so I'm going to hop over. I see questions. I'm going to hop over and show you reports, and then I'm going to stop at about 5 minutes still to make sure we have time for questions. And then if I have a few minutes, I'll show you the purchasing side. So coming on here, when I activate these inventory features, under my reports and under inventory, I now activated a lot more reports. So you can see that I've got serial numbers. You can see I've got a evaluation by site, and we still have all of our other standard ones. So let's start and let's look at our serial numbers and stock. And what this report is showing you, that it's showing you the inventory item, the inventory description, and it's showing you the serial numbers that are available to sell. So this is really good if, you know, you had multiple ones and you didn't know which one to pick and you wanted to be able to tell a salesperson, this is what's available. We can also come in here and we can see inventory valuation by site. So this is where it takes us and it has our multiple sites. So if we come over here, here is our site list. And these are created by based on what you want. So you can have, of course, you want to have your main, but you can have warehouse 1, warehouse 2, truck 1, truck 2. You can put it as a name. I've done some kind of work in progress where I have raw goods and finished goods. So you can name your warehouses whatever makes sense to you in your business. So coming back over here, you can see I'm running my inventory valuation summary. This report gives me quantity on hand and value on hand. It is date driven, and this is showing by site, so by warehouse site. So in my finished goods warehouse, I have 5 assemblies. That takes our average cost and gives me my asset value. In my main warehouse, here is all my items with quantity and value. And then I've got a raw goods warehouse and a warehouse 1. I did check this little box, and what this is saying is I don't need to see all of my active inventory items. I only want to see my items that have a quantity as of this date. Okay. So that is kind of my inventory reporting. I want to show you the one that I always love. This one doesn't change. It is my inventory status by item. And again, this is that when we talk about making sure you have all the data that you can possibly have inside of QuickBooks. So what this one does is it looks at your item setup, and you want to have a preferred vendor, and you want to have a reorder point. And what this means is how many do I want to keep in my warehouse so I can fulfill the orders as they come in. So in this case, we have for this anchor, I've said I wanted to keep 50 as my minimum on hand. Now the database is going to go and look. On hand would be what we would expect in the warehouse. And then it's going to go look at our sales orders. It's going to go look at our assemblies. It's going to go look at our purchase orders, and it's going to feed me back information. And so it says, based on what you have on all of those transactions, you're going to have a -18. And so the check mark is saying, I'm going to recommend that you reorder, and I'm looking at all of the orders you need to fulfill plus your minimum. So I'm going to recommend that you reorder 69 so that you keep the 50 that you wanted and can still fulfill these orders. Okay, so I'm at 27. So let's look at questions, and then we can hop back in if we have some time. So questions. Can we get a reply? What just happened to my questions? So we have question 1. With the recent tariff increases this year, are you seeing more small businesses using landed costs to include tariff costs in inventory now, since the tariff are so much higher than before? And the answer is yes. We have definitely had clients that are concerned on previously what they have for their average cost is not included all of the extra expenses that it actually takes to bring their product in. And so they want to have true cost of goods sold on those items. So they are using that feature even more and asking help on creating the workflow, creating the structure so that they have a true asset value and cost of goods sold when the product is sold. Okay. And then question, how easy is it to adjust quantity on hand with the serialized item? Well, Rich, let's do it. So if we come up to inventory and we go to adjust quantity and value, you can see that we have serial number, or we have quantity and total value. So serial number would be if we need to change out, maybe we fat fingered and we need to change it. But if we do quantity, and let's go ahead and let's use that item that I did before. And it's kind of, are we wanting to change the serial number? So let's do both of them. So let's change the serial number. Oh, it didn't like that I said that. Let me clear it. And we'll start fresh. And serial number. And then we're going to choose our site. And we're going to choose that anchor item I was using. And so you can see that we can remove serial number or add serial number, whatever we need to do on that. If we were just removing it, meaning that it's, an adjustment, then we would want to use the quantity and total value. So this is saying just change out the serial numbers, where this is saying this product was damaged and I want to write the value off to my cost of goods sold. Okay. Well, that's all I see for questions. I know we're right at 12:30. If you guys want more help, I would love to work with you. As you can tell, I get very excited talking about inventory. Enterprise does a great job of its structure, its workflow. So please let us help you get up and running, create what you guys need. So have a good rest of your day, and thanks for your time.